Licata here, and look, this is a big time of year for wrestling, where you got WrestleMania in about a month from now that'll be taking place in Texas. But before then, of course, the road to WrestleMania, and what better road to WrestleMania than Madison Square Garden, Saturday night, March 5th, a big time event. You could go to Ticketmaster right now and get tickets for the event with huge names: Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey. So many people will be in house. And of course, Paul Heyman will be there as well. Paul, what side are you going to be on come Saturday night? I don't know. You're with Roman Reigns, you're with Brock Lesnar, back with Roman Reigns. Saturday night, I'm assuming you'll be with Roman Reigns once again at the Garden?
Your assumption is 100% correct, sir. 100% correct. I shall be in the corner of the longest reigning Universal Heavyweight Champion of all time, the greatest Universal Heavyweight Champion of all time, your tribal chief, Roman Reigns, in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, I mean, you get about a month or so to flip-flop back and forth. How about for you personally, Paul, going back to the Garden, where it all began for you as a young kid trying to get your first start behind the scenes at the Garden? I know you're so experienced and you've done so much and have had so much success, but going back to the Garden, does that still mean something to you? Do you still appreciate that anytime you're there for a big event like this one?
I find the Garden to be the holy cathedral of sports. I'm entering a place of worship. I'm entering a place where magic happens. There's nowhere like Madison Square Garden. You know, it's the only thing I think in history that could compete with the aura of Madison Square Garden is most likely the Roman Coliseum, and I don't see anybody running that venue anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, it is the world's most famous arena. Many famous, WWE moments have happened there. So looking forward to it on the road to WrestleMania. How about WrestleMania itself? The two-night event that it's become now. Sell us why the two nights are so great for WrestleMania. I personally, I grew up on watching it one night, and I like that myself, having everything in one day. But you guys are so huge now, you make it two nights. Sell me on why two nights is better for WrestleMania.
If you have the hottest sex of your life with your girlfriend or your wife on one night, and she says, "Well, you've had your one night," and then you sit there and you go, "Oh, damn! There's 3 nights to a weekend, 2 nights to a weekend. Why am I only getting one night?" It's this very same thing. Why would we do one night of WrestleMania with 80 to 100,000 people at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas, when we can do 2 nights with 80,000 to 100,000 people? When they do Coachella, when they do Burning Man, when they do any of these music festivals, they don't limit it to one night. They get as many nights in as, one, the quality of the performances will provide, and 2, that they can sell the joints out. If we have an event that's so big that we can sell out that stadium in Dallas 2 straight nights in a row, why wouldn't we put on it? And we have enough talent to provide 2 nights of just magnificent entertainment that has taken a year to culminate. Why wouldn't we exploit that opportunity?
Yeah, and I think it's a great point about the talent. And that's something, I mean, you look around at wrestling and what it's become and the multiple companies. Now, obviously, you're somebody that's familiar with that, creating ECW and everything, but so much talent. And if you do it one night, you can't do as much with all that talent. So that does make sense. Speaking of the ECW stuff, me personally, I love, one of my favorite pay-per-views ever was ECW One Night Stand 2006, I believe, the one where Van Dam beat Cena. You look around, Paul, and you see the success of other smaller companies. You think there's space for ECW in today's world, or you think it would have been different had we been in today's world as opposed to back then, to when you tried to have the 3 in 1, with Raw, SmackDown, and ECW, WWE. But obviously the rise and fall of ECW was so famous and for what went on. You think there's room for an ECW in today's wrestling world?
Do I think there's room for another wrestling promotion outside of WWE? Absolutely. Do I think the original concept of ECW and the pushing of every boundaries, and ECW was a product of its time. The entire industry was so lackluster when we exploded on the scene, because we were breaking all taboos, we were smashing all inhibitions, we were just constantly pushing against the grain and doing things that had not been done before. Now, if you look at that from the perspective of extreme, extreme is not a place to go in today's cancel culture. However, is there room for a promotion that focuses on new homegrown talent, that does contemporary storylines, that takes a look at what the other promotions are doing and goes a completely different direction? Absolutely. I mean, there's always room for either a competitor or an alternative, but the original reputation of ECW, which was blood and guts, et cetera, that's not going to fly in today's society. However, again, that being said, if the concept was more tailored toward 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, an ECW like promotion, which would be based on progressive sports entertainment, which would be based on new talent that rises to the top, new matchups on top, different storylines than you'll see with the other guys. Absolutely, that's a viable concept.
Saturday night, road to WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden. Sal Licata here talking with Paul Heyman, getting ready for the road to WrestleMania. A huge night, Saturday night at the Garden. You had a big day yesterday with Vince McMahon sitting down with Pat McAfee on his show. First live interview that he did in 15 years or so. He announced that he'd be inducting The Undertaker into the Hall of Fame. Have you, Paul, ever thought about who you would have induct you when you go to the Hall of Fame?
I'd like to induct myself into the Hall of Fame. I don't know anybody who can introduce me better than I can introduce myself. Why would I have anybody induct me when probably the best promo to induct Paul Heyman would be done by Paul Heyman?
Good point. That was a dumb question on my part. How about managers in today? It's not the same when I was growing up, Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart, Miss Elizabeth, whatever, all the different managers, Blassie and Albano. Obviously, it's, evolved, Cornette, yourself, and you're still doing it, going strong. Why the less impact of managers in today's wrestling, where there's certainly talent that could use them? Maybe Brock Lesnar, for one, is like I said, you've been back and forth with him, but why do you think the less importance or impact of managers or advocates, whatever you want to call it, in today's wrestling?
Because the highest they're going to rise is to be number two, because none of them are going to be better than me. So before, when you had Freddie Blassie and Lou Albano and the Grand Wizard, they were always competing for the number one spot in Vincent James McMahon's WWF. There was always a chance to be number one. When it was Bobby Heenan and Jimmy Hart and that generation, there was always a chance that Jimmy Hart could be better than Bobby Heenan, or Bobby Heenan better than Jimmy Hart. They're always competing for number one. Now, undisputed, I'm number one. And anybody else that's going to come along, the highest they're going to reach is number two. There is not only a glass ceiling, there's a cement ceiling above your head, and nobody's going to bust through, because the more they come at me and the more they try to compete with me, I'm going to give them a New York ass whooping every single time. I've been doing it for 35 years. I did it so well, I had to change the name of the position from manager to agent, from agent to advocate, from advocate to special counsel. I'm 4 levels above everybody else. So the best they're going to reach is number two.
I love that answer. Now, it makes me think of something else. Speaking of number one, number two, are you a big sports fan, Paul, or a sports fan at all?
It depends on the sport.
All right. So baseball, for example, they're going through the lockout. We can get into that in a second. Are you a baseball fan?
I used to be a fan of baseball, but we all know that it's fake, but I can still enjoy it.
All right. So anyway, there's a guy called named John Heyman, who covers Major League Baseball, does some stuff for the Fan. Can you cut a promo on John Heyman telling him why Paul Heyman is the only Heyman that matters?
Only if he paid me a lot of money to make them famous.
Well, I mean, Paul, come on. He's John and I have a little bit of a thing going on here where I'm not really that friendly with him. I was hoping maybe you could rip him a little bit and tell him you're the only Heyman that matters.
I think, number one, that's already a matter of public knowledge, and number two, if you have a thing going with John Heyman, you should really upgrade your enemies and reach above and not down below. Because if his Twitter account ever went dark for a day, he'd be out of business. So I don't know why you're bothering with someone that has so little traction and thinks so very highly of himself.
Great point. You're right. I shouldn't have even brought it up. Now, you yourself, Paul, what do you do? I read a couple of places. I don't know how true it is, Wikipedia, but you have insomnia. You're a movie buff. I mean, what are you doing when you're not involved with wrestling, which is such a time-consuming business? You've been doing it forever. Do you watch movies? Are you up late at night partying still, even as you've gotten older here and your time with wrestling? What are you doing when you're not focused on wrestling?
Boy, you did a deep dive on my Wikipedia page. I love the fact on my Wikipedia page it says I suffer from insomnia. I don't suffer from insomnia. I celebrate insomnia. I have so much to be awake for and so little time on this planet to make it happen. So I don't suffer from insomnia. Number one. Do I like classic movies? Yeah, I like classic movies, but I also like modern movies. They took, again, something completely out of context in an interview that I did about why I started a movie poster business when I was 11 years old, because I was a fan of James Cagney and Angels with 30 Faces and of the movie Casablanca and Yankee Doodle Dandy and that whole late 1930s, 1940s era and genre. So again, what do I do for fun? I make money. I serve as special counsel to the tribal chief. I'm never more alive. I'm never more vibrant. I'm never more energized. I'm never younger than on a show day. That's my day. That's where I absolutely frickin' rule. That's where the true New Yorker comes out of me and is presented to the entire world, not just on camera, but behind the scenes as well.
Do you pay attention, being that you love wrestling so much? I've dealt with this in sports where I'll talk to some football coaches and they'll be like, when I'm off, I'm not watching any football. I need a break from it. Do you pay attention to like the indies or anything like that when you're not doing work, your job for WWE? You paying attention to other wrestling?
I pay attention not only to other wrestling, I pay attention to what could affect this industry 5 years from now. I brought Gable Steveson, who won the NCAA Division I Heavyweight Championship and the gold medal in the Olympics, to an event when he was in 10th grade and was just starting to get publicity out of Apple Valley, Minnesota, as the #1 high school wrestler in the country. And being that he was being pursued so heavily by the University of Minnesota, I invited Gable, his brother Bobby, and their parents to come to the show to meet Brock Lesnar, because I figured, okay, here's a mentorship that should begin. Here's someone who understands that road. And obviously he did, and they did very well together, because Gable won the NCAA Division I Heavyweight Championship, the Olympic gold medal, the first heavyweight to win the Hodge Trophy, which is the equivalent of the Heisman for wrestlers in college. It's since 1999. So I don't just pay attention to what's out there today. I'm constantly trying to figure out, okay, who can make an impact on this industry that no one has ever even heard of yet?
What about somebody like, the reason why I even bring that up is you have Matt Cardona, formerly known as Zack Ryder, who's just what the guy has done to market himself on the independent scene has been incredible. Clearly, you're familiar with him, being a former WWE guy. And I just wonder what you, as somebody who has a big voice in the company, would think of not only him, but people who are having success outside of maybe the mainstream wrestling. You look at some of those guys as people you'd want to bring in one day and have ideas for them moving forward in any aspect. If you think they could help or become something in WWE, you would look at them regardless of where they're at.
From any walk of life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. Why not look at it? All right, well, anyway, Paul, we'll let you go. I know you're on the beach there in Miami, enjoying yourself before the big event, Saturday night at the Garden, road to WrestleMania. You sure? Are you sure you're going to be with Roman Reigns? You're not going to flip-flop back and forth and switch to Brock, who will also be on hand? I think Lesnar could use you. I mean, you and Roman Reigns have been dominating. Maybe Lesnar could use you to balance it out a little bit. But you're sure you're going to be in Reigns' corner Saturday night at the Garden?
There's only one way to find out, and that's to be in Madison Square Garden.
Ticketmaster, of course, has the ticket information. All stars on hand. Ronda Rousey going to be there. Charlotte Flair, amongst others. We mentioned Brock Lesnar going to put his title on the line. Roman Reigns with, of course, Paul Heyman going to put his title on the line. as well. Thank you so much, Paul. We appreciate your few minutes.